This is Tech Room, powered by the Loctech Training Institute. I'm your host, Akilachi KJ. Call me the resident Texas. Tech Room is the corporate social responsibility of the Loctech Training Institute. It's a TV program that brings information technology education to our community's doorstep. We do this at Loctech because we believe that everyone, regardless of financial status, gender, or whatever class you are in, should have access to information technology education. Welcome. Welcome to the show, Obed.
Thanks for having me.
Kindly introduce yourself to our distinguished viewers.
Okay, my name is Obed Jidera. I'm an instructor here at Loctech. I instruct on cloud computing, cloud engineering.
Okay, cloud computing, cloud engineering.
Yeah.
I keep hearing this cloud. What exactly is this cloud? Is it up in the sky, or what cloud are we talking about?
Okay, basically the word cloud signifies up there, the cloud. So
yes.
In cloud computing simply involves you using a computer resource over an internet.
Over an internet.
Hence the name cloud computing, because
okay.
you know the internet, where is it? Up there too.
Oh, okay.
So that's
learning.
That's where the name came from. So cloud computing, using a computer resource over an internet.
So can you break it down for the layman to understand?
Yeah, sure. So
yes.
Yeah, computer research now involves let's say, for example, let's bring it down to what we know.
Yes.
We know that a computer has storage device, compute, and network. So now these are the three main components or three main resources of a computer. Now in the cloud, we tend to use these resources over there.
Okay. So where exactly is the cloud?
Okay, the cloud.
Can you give us a practical example of a cloud usage in our day-to-day lives?
Okay, funny here, we've actually been closer to using cloud services than we don't know. For example, now we all here have a Gmail address.
Okay.
You have an
email.
email.
Yes.
Now that is an example of a cloud service.
A Gmail account.
Gmail account. Then you have what's called Google Drive.
Yes, I do.
Google Drive. That too is an example of a cloud service. So as you can see, we've actually been closer to using cloud services, just that we don't know yet about it.
So for me, can I say that, or for the lay people, can we say that cloud services are like the external storage systems that are not with us?
Not necessarily. Okay. Remember I said initially I mentioned computer resource. I mentioned network. Storage and compute.
So storage is just one part
one of them. Okay. Exactly. Okay. So over the internet. So
we're using cloud computing and engineering handles all the three different aspects of this computer resource over the internet and more. Okay.
The best part is for you to come into cloud engineering, there's no prerequisite.
There's no prerequisite.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
There's no technical background that you need to have. No technical know-how. You come in, you learn it. Get to understand the fundamentals of the cloud. It's new knowledge and easy to grasp.
And you think that this career path is a lucrative career path that somebody can step into, right?
Very much so.
Very much so. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for coming on today's show. Welcome to the learning segment on today's episode. Last week, the tutor for the product design class taught us all we needed to know about the basics and the rudiments of UI UX. But this week, we're going to be having the tutor back to give us more information about the course, the career UI UX, also known as product design.
Alright, welcome back everyone to our second episode on the UI UX design course. Last week was really fun for me, of course, because we discussed what UI UX actually is and the difference between both fields of the design. Well, in case you missed it, you can always check our YouTube page. The entire course, the entire video is there, so you can catch up and stay updated. So today, we are going to be discussing and answering the important question that we left last week: how to understand our users. So let's get to it. Okay, so how do we understand our users? remember, we said the entire aim for UI and UX completely is to ensure usability of a product. And we said that usability is the ability for you to make your product usable for your users and be able to solve their problems with ease. But how can you find out those problems that your users are facing? We are not mind readers, but we have some specific tools and methods to be able to cover that, which is what we call a UX research. Now, part of the UX design process is conducting an actual user research, where you get to understand your users and find out the problems that they're actually facing and how you can be able to solve those problems. So for today, I'm going to be listing out all the steps involved in this research and how to be able to conduct the research, and as well how we can finally end up defining our problem. So firstly, we have to conduct user interviews. User interviews can come in many ways. It is usually a one-on-one session with prospective users. Now, these users can be from a variety of circumstances, different demographics, but related to our target audience. Your goal in this user interview is to find out challenges, peculiar challenges that these users face when performing day-to-day activities related to the product you're trying to create. When conducting these user interviews, you have to be careful and also be observant to find out what your users actually are facing. But believe me, this is not an easy task, because many times users don't even know their problem. They can't even express it. So you have to be really observant. Yes, you have to turn to a true detective to actually detect their problems. You can also carry out surveys this is what we call quantitative research. Use of questionnaires, Google Forms to pass out information to people. Let them use so that you can use your statistics to judge and determine the problems that a particular group of people are facing. You can use this through forms, questionnaires, walking on the streets, or spreading emails of Google Forms, asking people to fill this out, different people with different backgrounds, so that you can get information from a variety of individuals. Now, after you've done all this research, whether you chose to use interviews or you chose your surveys, your qualitative research and all of that, the next thing you have to do is to develop a persona. Now, a persona is a fictional character, just like what we have on the screen. It's a fictional character. That means the person doesn't exist. Don't go and use your family people. The person does not exist. So this person is a representative of the entire group of people that you've just interviewed, the people that you've done your research on. That means this person will bear a similar demographics as to all those people, and similar challenges as well as problems, frustrations, goals, and something related in their about of the type of people that you've met so far. So the goal of this your user persona is to draft out a map or an understanding of how or the challenges that your users are facing and how you can solve this problem. In your persona, you should have a section for your motivations. What motivates your users? Related, of course, to the challenges that is on ground. What are your users' frustrations? What are their goals? What do they strive to achieve? A brief about things about them, who they are, where they come from, where they work, and all of that. It also contains their age, their status, and their name. Basically, this is a template of what a user persona looks like. So the goal of this your user persona is not just to make it look good, but it's just to be able to pinpoint your users, to get to know your users. After you've done this, the next thing you want to do is to create an empathy map. Now, an empathy map is like an analysis of all the things, the information that you've gathered during your research. You gather the analysis from what your user says, how they think, what they do, and how they feel. You're trying to do this. Remember, your goal is to understand your users, and in UX design, empathy is a very important aspect of that. So while conducting your UX research, you must empathize with your users, not just know their problems. Try to feel what they are feeling. So you have to take note of what they say that can help you, what they think, what they do, and how they feel. So after drafting all of this, now you get to the second section of your research, which is to define a problem. Now remember, you have interviewed a host of people, lots of people, you've gotten a lot of ideas, you've gotten a lot of problems crowding through your mind. So what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Your research, by this point, must have been able to answer that question. What is the major challenge that this my problem is going to solve? How am I going to help my users? This is where you start ideating. Now you'll see that before you come into your system to start jumping into Figma or doing anything, you have a lot of process, because these steps, it takes days, even weeks or months, because you have to gather the right information. Now, when you're doing your research, you don't have to be sentimental or picking a particular group of people, perhaps only close friends and family. You have to pick a diverse set of individuals with different problems so that you can be able to get a diverse mindset or a viewpoint for your problem. So once you've done all this, you start picking out patterns from all the things that your users have said. What do they have in common? What challenges do they all face? Then the ones that stand out, that is your problem that you have to solve. So, of course, when conducting user research, there are best practices that we as UX designers tend to follow. Firstly, you have to ask lots of questions. Don't make assumptions. Do not assume. Do not feel. Do not say, I think. Make sure that everything you do or say is based off of what your users has done or say. So you can only do this by asking questions. Try to get to know what is inside the heart of your users. Many times users cannot express themselves. They can't really say what is bothering them, what their challenges are. So you can always bring out what is in their minds through the power of questions. Secondly, you have to become observant. Like I said, you need to act like a true detective. They might not always be able to express their problems with words, not all the time. So take note of their body language, facial expressions, how they move, how they react physically to certain triggers, how their emotions are displayed with their body language. You have to observe all this, because this will also tell you how frustrated, how happy, how saddened or how angry they are at a particular problem that they are facing. Thirdly, be an active listener. Don't be there to be always correcting or always bringing up all your vocabulary. No. If possible, limit your words. Make sure that your user always say more than you. Limit your words to only your questions, and questions that will bring up more answers. And pay attention well. Because if you talk, you won't be able to listen. And when you don't listen, you're solving a problem that you think is a problem. You're not actually solving the problem that is actually on the ground. So you have to make sure that you listen well. Nextly, you have to request for input. So requesting for input means that many times when you've asked questions, your users have thought they've expressed themselves, you also make statements that will make them want to say something. Also, you can propose a probable solution just to hear their own viewpoint. Remember, your goal is to understand them. So you do this by things they say, because what they say reflects on how they feel. So you have to always request for input. Don't make your users just an active listener. You should be the active listener and the passive speaker. So always make sure that your users are imputing their opinion, always. Then, fifth, is to have an open mind. Don't be so fixated on what you think is the problem. Don't be so focused on what you feel might be the problem. And this will only be possible if you enter an interview without a hypothesis or without a possible problem in your mind. When you're conducting an interview, it is always the best practice to make sure that your mind is void of any probable solutions, any probable problems of any sort. Make sure that whatever you have in your mind is something that the users put there, not what you already have. Because an open mind is very important, because it can make you to understand your users properly. When you have an open mind, you can be open to more viewpoints, and then you can be able to see the frustrations that your users are actually facing and know how to help them instead of how to correct them. Last but not least, keep current on your UX research. Make sure that you're always updating your information. Make sure that you're always up to date, you're always current. Don't be using past news. Don't take what your friend told you 2-3 years ago and compare now, because the world keeps on changing. After you've done all this, you've conducted your research, you found out your problem, you then have to create what we call a user flow, just like what we have on the screen. Now, this user flow is like a journey of your user. How is your product going to solve their problem? The journey that your user will take with your product to be able to solve their problems. That is what a user flow represents. So you're going to relate all the screens, the decisions that your user might make, and the actions that those decisions will lead to. And then the end result will be a problem solved. So you have to create this user flow after you've understood and you've defined the problem that your product is trying to face. This user flow is going to guide your entire design process. It's going to determine what features you're going to put in your product and what you're going to leave out. It's going to also determine how your product is going to look and how it will be like. So you see, this is where the basis, or this is the ground floor for where visual design will sprout. You can't design when you're not working with a particular structure. So your user flow helps to determine all these things before you actually start creating that product. So after you've made your user flow, the next step is to start designing. But designing doesn't come immediately on the screen. There are still some other things you have to do. So stay tuned. Stay tuned, because in our next video, we are going to start our design phase of the design thinking process, and we are going to explore all the steps, the different types of wireframes that one can create to be able to ensure a very good usable design. That's it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this episode for the UI UX design training. So like we've learned today, we've seen how we can be able to understand our users effectively and find out the problems that our product will solve. So stick with us next week so that we can be able to explore or dive into the design process. Remember, we'll be focused on UX, all the boring talk and research. Now it's time to actually get to the fun part where we start designing. So I'll see you again next week.
Remember, you can also reach us on phone at 0703 888 5466. Send us a DM to all our socials at Loctech Training. But if you'd like to visit, please come on at number 4A at Timopoyo Close off Aba Road, Port Harcourt. And until same time, same station when I come your way again, it's Akelachi KJ, resident Texas, signing out.